1937. That's the year I was born. This the Malachi Gilmore Hall was built in 1937. I was born in 1937. So it's 81 years old.
Well, I have early memories of coming here to the afternoon matinees on Saturday.
Mum would give us 2 bob to go to the flicks, and we'd arrive at the gate and at the door, and Mrs. David would gruffly ask us for our money. And it was 1 and 6 to get in. There were plenty of seats and there was always a crowd. And I can always remember Mrs. David walking amongst us. No one was game to interrupt anything or make a noise, because one stern look from her with the torch on her face, we were terrified.
She had a big long torch like this, we were both doing it, and she'd whack us on the head to tell us to be quiet, and you'd better be careful or I'll tell your mother.
Sort of the usual one, going to the pictures and rolling Jaffas down the aisle. And Mrs. David had come round trying to find out who did it. Herb David ran the picture theatre here, and Jean was on the door.
Everybody knew Herb. There's a park named after him, and he was one of the local characters who really enjoyed being part of this community. Herb was the picture show man. Herb was the one who had to have this theatre. He perhaps wouldn't have had it. No, he could not have had it without my mother, and my mother was everything else about this theatre.
I got to know Herb David through buying a push bike at the Oberon electrical store and became good mates with him. Herbie said to me one day, he said, "How would you like to come down," he said, "to the picture theatre and see a free movie?" And I said, "Oh, that'd be great." He said, "And I'll show you what goes on." He started the movie, and Herbie he was showing me just how, giving me a few jobs, how to help him with the movie. And that happened quite often from then on.
I also did roller skating here. So I remember Mr. David would mix up a blend of kerosene and sawdust to put down on the floor to make the floor shiny and slippery, so we would be able to roller skate around the hall.
Herb David was our dad, and he ran the movies and various other social events here for a number of years. And that was everything from the movies to, there were lots of functions here downstairs for balls for debutantes and things.
Well, everyone held a ball those days. There was show ball, Masonic ball, Anglican ball, Catholic ball, Scots ball. Everyone held a ball.
I met my husband on a blind date here at Malachi Gilmore Hall. I met them outside, and then we came inside, had a lovely evening, and we went downstairs underneath the hall for supper afterwards. About 3 years later we were married.
You'll go downstairs for the supper, so you'd have a meal down there, and the ladies would cook in the kitchen, and so it was a really magical thing as a kid. We thought it was like the best thing out because you could stay up so late.
My first memory would be wedding photos of my parents, Richard and Ida Simmons. It was held in the underneath section of the cinema, which really, I don't know, doesn't appear to be a lot of room, and even in photos it looked like the ceiling was nearly on top. But it all seemed very cosy and very close, but that's where they had receptions in 1947.
I almost ended my days in the Malachi. I arrived one night in the newest thing out, a beautiful new nylon frock. And I was sitting on my boyfriend's knee, who turned out to be my husband, Jeff Dennis. His mate was sitting alongside him smoking, and he lit his cigarette, he flicked his cigarette like that, and the match landed in my dress, and it went whoosh, almost the end of the days.
No one had the money to spend to do the hall up, so it just went in. It sat here idle for quite a few years until the Better Wall bought it and used it for other things, and then the Cobweb Craft Centre came in here and just kept the building alive.
I worked for Cobweb Craft Shop for 7 years. We had the front area here, local craft, and people from everywhere used to come, and they just loved the building. They'd poke their head around the door and say, "Can we come in and have a look?" So they'd come in and take photographs, and sometimes people would even set easels up on the other side of the road and paint it. You know, it was just so outstanding.
This place is, I mean, it's part of its DNA and everything to be part of the community and to be used. And I think that some of the years over the years when it's not being used, it was kind of sad to say it was such an amazing building with so much history and so much, you know, if, like Judy says, if the walls could talk, there was so much wonderful stuff that happened here.
I always wished that the Malachi had been taken over by someone and looked after and used again in this type of thing, like for the town.
For Lucy and Johnny to take on a project like this, I think is absolutely fantastic. You know, and they have the vision for taking this kind of structure into the next century.